everyone ready for this? Am I ready for this? I'm gonna do a music. I know.
And it's weird. I am actually now related to that.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Right. Are you going to sing or play music?
Sadly, no.
Ah,
I'm just gonna introduce you.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Alex Elliott. I am the Senior Manager of Events and Engagement for the Public Programs Department of California Institute of Integral Studies, which is a nonprofit university located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, now called San Francisco, California. While we may all be joining from different places all over the world, we have an online audience and all of you here in the room. I'm really excited to welcome you all to this shared space this evening for Voices from California, Indigenous Language and Cultural Revitalization. Tonight's conversation is being live streamed to our online audience, and it's also being recorded for our podcast, which allows us to provide this content to a wider audience. If any of you would like to watch it again, or any of you in the room want to see it later and revisit it, or share it with your community, it will be available starting later tonight on the CIIS Public Programs YouTube channel. And months from now, a little bit later, it will be on our podcast with the accompanying transcript. And you can find that podcast at CIISpod.com or by searching CIIS Public Programs on your favorite podcast app. We are going to have a live Q&A this evening after their conversation. So if you're watching live online or in the room, you can post your questions at any time. If you're online, you're going to use the web form that's linked just below the video in the description. And if you're in the room, there are QR codes around the room that you can use to access on your device. And that will all go to the same place. So you will all have the same experience of Q&A. If you do need help using the QR codes or you want us to write it down for you, you can visit the check-in table in the room and we can help with that. We will try to get through as many questions as we have time for. For our online audience, chat is enabled for this event, but please note that it's not being moderated and it is not required to fully experience this event. Please be respectful and avoid language that could be offensive or insensitive to others. We really encourage you to turn that off if it's negatively impacting your experience in any way. Tonight, I'm really honored to be able to introduce Kata and Elle Frank, and I'm going to read their bios before we get into their conversation. Elle Frank is a Tongva and Ajachmem and Raramuri artist, writer, tribal scholar, cartoonist, and Indigenous language activist. She brings extensive knowledge of California Indian cultural affairs to her position on the Pepperwood Native Advisory Council. Elle Frank has exhibited her artwork, paintings, sculpture, weavings, photography, cartoons, regalia in museums and galleries locally, nationally, and internationally. She works to revitalize Indigenous languages and is the co-founder of Advocates for Indigenous California Language Survival. Elle Frank also served as a board member of the Cultural Conservancy, as well as Neshkanakat, and for 15 years served on the board of directors of the California Indian Basket Weavers Association. Kata Gomes grew up in San Jose, where she witnessed the transitions of the Valley of the Heart's Delight into today's Silicon Valley. She found refuge in the redwood forests, living off the grid for over 40 years, establishing a closer relationship to the earth and the ocean. Growing up, Kata was proud of the fact that she was a 12th generation Californian. And as a young adult, Kata learned she was descended from the Salinan tribe. It recently came to light that her family also has lineage to Ramaytush and Bay Miwok ancestry. The Mission Dolores records revealed Muchia as the family matriarch who links Kata's lineage to the Ramaytush tribe. Kata is dedicated to the rematriation of her ancestral homeland and has named the land trust in her honor. We are so grateful to them both. And before we begin the conversation, I'm going to hand it over to Patty Fort, who is both a part of our public programs team, but also works on Beyond Land Acknowledgement with a wonderful group of people here at CIIS. She will share an acknowledgement and reflection now.
Hi, I'm so happy to be with all of you. I'm a representative of public programs, but also a part of the many people who are ongoing working on Beyond Land Acknowledgement. So I'm here just to offer an acknowledgement, a moment to ground together, and a starting resource as well. And I'm using my phone. Location is important and place is powerful. Our little location, the place that I'm standing in now, CIIS, is unceded Ramaytush Ohlone land. And unceded means that no tree was assigned in exchange of land. So because of that, lives were lost, cultures, languages, communities, and what we're doing tonight and what we're talking about ongoing is revitalization and resistance, which is ongoing and happening consistently. So we want to honor that. So I want to share a starting resource with everyone here, which is to sort of start the beginner work of accountability, of new learning and repair and relationship. And that is native-land.ca. It allows you to search your location and find the territories, languages, and lands that you work, you play, you enjoy, and that you're a part of. And from that knowledge, you can learn ways of support, whether that's donations or otherwise, and how to begin to build relationships with Indigenous communities. Our best relationships are mutually supportive, and they're about care, and they're about accountability. So entering in with the intention of a good relationship is key. This resource is in the YouTube description and will be a part of a lot of resources we'll share in the post-event email that anybody will have if they registered. The road to accountability starts with each of us and starts with us being grateful for the continual and continuous caretaking of Indigenous communities of where we live and work and play and travel. And understanding the layers and understanding the resistance and the revitalization of those places is so important. So I'm excited to be here to hear this conversation, to learn and to grow as an individual and as a part of CIIS, and to be in better relationship and in solidarity as an uninvited guest here and as a settler. So I thank Catalina, Cata, and I thank L. Frank, and so excited for your conversation. So we'll start.
Bershamor. Ekrakat kata. Kanak Ramaytush. Porsha tamwate makroa. Tunekai umu. Sispanane watekne. Greetings, good evening. My name is Kata. I am Ramaytush. Welcome to our home at the edge of the ocean. Thank you for all of you for coming.
Om kai kai mikinga. Om kai kai mikinga. Om. Om kai kai mikinga. Om kai kai mikinga. Om. Netwanya na El Frank no ne tong vetam no hi tong vet kukamovet pi raramuri pi Ajachmem no ne Hollywood ngai atach. Hi, L. Frank. I'm a Hollywood Indian.
I'm so honored to be here with you, Al. You are a mentor to me. I have great respect and admiration, and it's truly an honor to be here with you.
Well, wait to see until it's over.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be fun.
All right. You get to go first. Your lands.
Okay.
Unless you want me to take them from you. And
No,
I can
no,
go
not
first.
yet.
All right.
Okay. Well, I first met Elle actually over a phone conversation She started mentoring me even before I enrolled in Berkeley's Breath of Life Indigenous Language program, where I started studying the Ramaytush language. And I felt it was really important. We've started a nonprofit, a women-led 501c3, majority Ramaytush descendants on our board of directors. And I felt very strongly that the first step in our journey to our cultural revitalization was to start with the language. And I was so grateful that Elle started mentoring me before I even went to Berkeley to Breath of Life. And we haven't had any native speakers in 100 years. And while I was there, I was the only one there studying the Ramaytush language. But I was greeted and met with a lot of encouragement and really well-wishing for everyone that I came in contact with. And since we have hired Muchia Indigenous Land Trust as of last March, hired 2 linguists to work with us, and we've started our own language school. And so we're really blessed to be on this journey and to have so much love and support, help nurturing us and guiding us along the way. And it all started with Elle. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, but I think it all started with your ancestors bugging you. All right. I'm just wondering how far, I think I have to go all the way back to Euripides or something to start my language journey. So before I was born, I traveled the world with another native, and we were choosing where we were going to be born. And there was a language that we spoke, and I call it the language of the stars because I don't know what else to call it. And finally, we're born, and in utero, well, we're not born yet. In utero, it was just me. She went somewhere else, different utero. I was hearing this language, and because I was in the lands that, you know, I after I'm born, I realized are my homelands. So I'm hearing this language, I'm hearing languages, and I'm feeling so good. And I'm feeling like, yes, this is where I want to be, where I hear these kinds of sounds. And then when I'm born, I realize nobody speaks this language. Nobody's speaking this language. And so I don't even know what tribe I am because, you know, it's that thing of colonization. Oh, you're all Spanish. Well, no, but nobody wants to say what anybody else really is because that means more trauma for you. So I was this weird little child who was always seeing my ancestors and always hearing my ancestors, and nobody ever believed me. Yet a place where I played, I was about 3 years old, and I used to go down about 2 miles because, you know, it's that way when nobody misses you. And I went to where I was welcome. And there was this huge field below Loyola. It's now Loyola, Marymount, something else. And I used to think that's where the Catholic Lord lived because it only had a big L at the time. So right below the Lord's house was this huge field. And I used to lay on this one section. I played all over it, but on this one section I would lay because that language, there it was again, I could hear it. And there were people under the ground and they would talk about me, they would ignore me, they would talk to each other, but I could hear the language. It turns out that when the archaeologists, well, when people wanted to put up tennis courts and condominiums, they found there were 600 of my people buried there. And where I played, there were 400 women. So I've never had a choice about language reclamation because I'm just a pot smoking hippie lesbian. You know, I'd be fine watching Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, you know, instead of having to search the world over for remnants of us. You know, I feel complete, but I popped out thinking there'd be tribe, but the government says we're extinct and we might as well be. There's 1,500 of us maybe over here, and my other tribe, maybe 2,500 of us. And we're not in such good shape because our homeland is LA. I am a Hollywood Indian. So try being a native in that kind of a city. Try retaining your language, you know, try anything in that city. Yeah, it's mean streets, but at least the weather's nice. So my language thing began all the way back before I was born. And one time in the desert, after consuming these things that we grew, all my ancestors came to me. Everybody else is off in the desert doing the acid dance because I'm old. This was the 60s. Everybody's off doing the acid dance, and my ancestors come right out of the sky through that Twilight Zone door, because I am a Hollywood Indian, so everything is related to TV and movies. That door opens up and my ancestors come out and they start saying, you are going to do this and you are going to do that. And most of it had to do with piecing back a culture. Most of it had to do with language. You know, and I, autistic, dyslexic guy, barely made it out of any grade I ever entered, you know? So it's like, yeah, right, I'm going to do all this stuff. But it was the mandate. So I had no choice ever, ever. And so then I created that Breath of Life program, because all the scientists want you to say, okay, first you're going to learn what a verb and a noun is, and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. I failed English. I don't know how to diagram a sentence. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And the rest of us Indians, because we get the best educations in the world, a lot of us didn't know either. And so I made a program that I was doing. The first thing in my language program is to go to those museum basements and touch everything you can. Because the language is still everywhere. It's just embedded in everything. Sometimes it has a little arsenic on it, but what the heck, you know. And put the language together. And then I asked the linguist to come and I said, you can teach us what all these little marks are, the diacritics, you know, what all these little marks are, but don't tell me what I don't ask you, you know, because it's about us and what we need. And so that was quite an adventure, because linguists are trained scientists and natives are not. And you put us together in these intimate places and arises conflict, yeah. A lot of great things happen and conflicts happen because the world hasn't resolved yet. We've come a long ways. Now we have statements of accountability and land acknowledgements, but that's about as far as we've come. We are still different peoples. So this language journey, and I'll let Kata talk because otherwise we'll be here till 10 if I keep on. But that was the beginning of the journey, putting together a program that fit people like me. Because people who can diagram sentences, this program will be a piece of cake. People who can't diagram sentences and remember what a fricative is, they still have a chance. And that's what Breath of Life is about. And it's not, that program is supposed to be about learning how your sounds are supposed to be, learning not to be afraid of making those sounds, learning, like I was interested in song and I'm interested in stars. So why should I start with colors and numbers? You know? And so that's what that program was based around, what it is that you need and want and fits you, because the only way you're going to learn a language is if you do what fits you already. Yeah, okay, I'll stop there and make up more stuff later.
Okay, okay. Well, we feel really blessed in our program that we just started our language program, because we have hired 2 linguists to work with us. Both of them are here with us tonight. It's Alex, Elias, and Nimkins. And we feel really fortunate to have 2 linguists because everyone has their own gifts and it's very different what they bring to our program, but it's all really valuable and we're finding it a wonderful experience to be working with them. And I'd actually like to hear more about Elle and her journey with her canoes.
Okay, we're going to skip around. All righty.
Yeah.
All right. I'll get you to the most recent thing that is, I think, 50 years from me in the making. And I was surprised it actually happened. I guess you stick to your guns and sometimes things work. So in about 1991, somebody else was dreaming about building a canoe. You know, down in LA, we've got some islands, right? We got Catalina Island. Its name is actually Pimu. And Pimu is the word for your, what's this called? Your eye shade. What's this thing called? Eyelid. Yeah, there you go. My English is gone. So your eyelid, that piece of the island is where Mother Earth gave birth, and that's the eyelid of Mother Earth, that island. And further out there, I don't know if you've ever heard of Island of the Blue Dolphins, 67 miles offshore, off the mainland, Southern Cal. The Navy used it to bomb things, you know, and like, let's explode this place. Well, that place is our center of the universe. And when we pass away, when we're born, we come from the Milky Way and we come through this rock that's in a cave, and we're born. And when we pass away, we pass back through that rock to the Milky Way. So of course it's, where bombs happen, and we're not allowed on it because we might claim it. So there's all this stuff with ocean and islands and canoes, how you got around. The Chumash have like 6 or 7. Theirs are called tomol, their canoe, and ours is called tiat. What's special about this canoe is it's nothing you're going to see in Minnesota. It can be any length. I helped build the first one in 91 or so, and built the second. I'm about to build the third in about 300 years. It's a sewn, glued together plank canoe. So it's how we got back and forth to the islands. And nobody really knows how to build one. I think I do now because I've built several. And I've gone 5 times on tribal canoe journey. Because as I said, when I was born, I expected things to be there and they weren't. And what I got instead was remnants of tribe and memories of tribe, and sleeping languages, all these things. And so it's been my mission. Oh gosh, I really hesitate using that word. It's been my vision I just want a tribe. I just want to be part of a tribe. But it seems that I'm going to have to help be one of the people who helps put the puzzles back together. So this canoe, as many other specific cultures will tell you, it holds the culture. It is the embodiment of culture. And so not only is this a really intricately mathematical canoe to make, then what? I make this big canoe, I want to make a canoe. How much is the wood? $10,000. Where's an Indian going to get $10,000, for this? Well, I met a guy who lives in a forest. All right, I got a tree. So I made this canoe. I just left. I've had it made it now 10 years. And I just left it down in Los Angeles for the kids to use, because by kids, I mean, they're like 20s and 30s. When you get old, that's what happens. Everyone's a kid, right? So these kids with children of their own in college, I left it, and I'm trying to find a beach in Southern California where I can leave it on the beach for them so they can take it out whenever they want, rather than having to get a trailer and a truck and all this other stuff that we can't afford and nobody knows how to drive either. So this whole piecing back together our culture, our revitalization of us, it has to include every single aspect of living. Every single aspect of living. And the canoe is a big one. And the canoe, it's really great because it captures people's imaginations. And in there, you can fill it full of language and hope. And it's really a great thing. So the other day, we took it down to Santa Monica. And even though she's been on 5 tribal canoe journeys, and orcas have chased us, and triple black whirlpools, and we've never been in this canoe in 300 years. So we don't know what we're doing. You kneel in it and you have double blades, and it's really skinny. And people go, oh, that's for skinny Indians. We take a lot of mocking because up till recently, we were only going 1 knot. I changed that. I created this seat to lean your butt on and carbon fiber paddles. And now we're 3 knots, which is just perfect. So we took this down to Southern California and had a day. And it almost didn't happen, but we had a day where, when you're so decimated as a culture, the people left in that culture feel that there's something that they have to fight for, and they have to fight each other for it. And that's what exactly this dominating society puts upon us, that we chew each other up so they don't have to deal with us. Keeps us unhealthy. So I take this canoe down and I invited everybody. The people who don't like each other, I made sure to invite them. And they came. And they usually come so that, well, I'm not going to be left out if they're going to be there. I don't care what your reason is, just come. Because when we got there, we had to all carry that canoe out. So we all carried that canoe out. And when we took it to the water, somebody had to do this. So we all did that. And there were like 15 people who went out to help in the canoe. It got really windy, it got really crazy, and the waves are wild. We've never taken in waves. I'm thinking, oh no, they're all going to die. When at that point, the lifeguard captain drives up, jumps out of his car, and starts yelling just at all of us, "You're all going to die." Here we are trying to put our culture together. And, it's like, "You're all going to die. It's going to flip over and you're going to die. All these people are dead. You're all going to die." He just went on. So I just pretended I was a moron going, oh, and because otherwise I was going to say things I might regret. And I don't know if they have handcuffs, those lifeguards. So I just kept my mouth quiet. And he made the mistake, for me, it was a mistake. He said, I've seen boats like this flip over and everyone's dead. And I said, you've seen boats like this? I mean, it's the second one in 300 years. So, he goes, and so that pretty much ended that conversation. And so I went down to everybody who was carrying the boat, and the whole community is listening to him scream. And they're here doing this glorious reclamation of us, with this second in 300 years. They get to be the ones to put it in the water, and they just listen to this. So I walked over to them and I looked at the skipper, and there were 3 going to go in the canoe. I said to the skipper, he says, you're going to die. How do you feel about it? And my skipper goes, I'm ready. I looked at the other person. How about you? He goes, I'm ready. And I looked at the other one who'd never been in a canoe. And so I tried to relate to him sports, because I figure, some body memory, I can give you some technique in here if you've never been in this canoe. And turns out he played in the drum line or something. It's like, well, that'll help with chiming, I guess. But, I was looking for like basketball, football, anything. But that was good, because he was brilliant once he got in. But they got in, and it was an effort to get them out. The waves were against us. The canoe was here and the waves were above, and it got swamped, and my skipper called for help, and all the people who came to spectate, the women are in their little velvet high heels and their dresses, and they're all wet, and everybody's wet up to the armpits, and children and women and canoes, and the wind is blowing, and that man has stopped yelling, but he's still eyeballing us. And it became this 15-minute effort to get this canoe out into the water after she had swamped. The waves just came in, and for ballast, you have to have sandbags. And so there's just all this organized chaos. Next thing you know, they've got her back up, and they're shoving her out. And people, fortunately, well, these are all rich people, they tend to not like to flock. But so they were discreetly looking from where they were in their little shade tents and watching us. And the minute that they were able to shove it past the last wave to get out, the whole beach erupted in paddle, as if they weren't going to, right? But paddle was the cry, and they paddled. And the new young man, the drumline young man, it took him a couple of strokes, and then they were gone. And there was that 3 knots. And what it did was it made people who are fighting each other their whole lives and generations of it hug each other and claim victory, victory over genocide. They'd hug each other and realize who they're hugging and stop. But at least, at least it happened. And then when the canoe came in, my skipper was so happy, ran up to me like a puppy and says, I want to go again. I said, well, why did you get out of the water? And we couldn't make it the second time because the waves are pretty ferocious. So we went inside, where we celebrated with tamales. Boy, I'm in LA, so they bought all these vegan tamales. It's like, no. Where's the pork? There's just not a tamale if you're vegan. They go, but they're so good. It's like, oh, that's Hollywood Indians. Do we have sparkling water too? So no, I made 3 gallons of Mexican hot chocolate. So we all shared food together, Mexican hot chocolate and tamales, and talked about language in the future, and our children getting in the canoe, and our children learning the language. And just this incredible day built around that canoe. And the talk, because I always give talks, before we put it out in the water, was that there is nothing political about this, that this is purely cultural, that this is about a canoe and our relationship to it and the ocean. So I'm hoping, and it sure feels like it, that it's going to make a difference to everybody. I know it is, because part of revitalizing a culture, everyone talks about decolonizing. We don't really know what that is. Every time we turn around, I think I'm decolonized. I realize, oh my God, I'm not. Oh, that's awful. I did a voice thing for Netflix. I hope they're not listening. I did a voice thing for Netflix, and they don't know this, but I was in that recording room at City of Ghost, episode 4. I'm the one with all the bling, but there were 3 Asian women, and they were seated there, and I kept waiting for a Caucasian to walk in the room and start things. And I thought, oh, you are not decolonized at all. Not at all. I had to change my business card. It said decolonizationist. It's like, no, you don't even know what that means. So in order to revitalize culture, it's so intricate. You would not believe how intricate it is. I made a painting once that I hope would describe it. It's Coyote dressed as a magician. Little kids think he's a vampire. This coyote dressed as magician and all his, the cards and the little balls that come out of your nose or whatever they do, all the magic stuff, yeah. And it's called culture. It says on the painting, Culture Revival Act 730, and the painting is called Waiting for the Grant. So what I'm trying to say is you have to be magicians in order to bring back your culture. Me who, I was a Morlock in junior high. They put me in with everybody who was, deficient. So, and here I am talking to astrophysicists or, arco whatever botanists, or, a really bitching thing was going to happen. I was going to get to have a week on one of those script ships, and they were going to study the bitumen seeps under the Channel Islands in Santa Barbara, which the nerd in me was like totally excited. I was just going to see where tar comes from, but I was like, yes, that's me. So the things you have to do to put back a culture, you have to find the people who are willing to help you and help you for very little or no money. They gave me that wood for that canoe for free. The language people who work with me do it for free. I try to feed them when they come over and do this or that, and always raise them, because we need a lot of help in order to revitalize anything we're doing. Because I hate to call it the red tape, but that came from England, the red ribbon they tied their law papers in. We call it the white tape. There's just so much tape of any color around everything. There's so many stops. The University of San Francisco just gave me an honorary doctorate for trying to undo the damage the Catholic Church had done. And I'm discovering that it opens quite a few doors. I didn't think it would, because I go through any door that's open without permission anyway, but it's actually made a difference. And now I try to use it to get other people through the doors. But revitalizing language, your culture, your basketry, you always risk arrest. You want to go collect stuff to make baskets, you got to climb over a fence in someone's private property, or you got to go through the Park Service and get a permit. You can only collect 4 plants. Oh, but I need 17, So it's just a really treacherous, arduous, sometimes rewarding task, because every time you do something, there's some Indian crab, and I know every culture has crabs. You might have crabs right now.
Well, we had an experience with the Hokulea this week.
Mhm.
Just on Sunday, the Hawaiian voyaging canoe, the Hokulea, Star of Gladness, blessed us with their visiting Half Moon Bay. And they came down Sunday, and as they were coming down the coast, passing our village site of Tamigtok, which my first project in Breath of Life was to translate the name of our village, because talk at the end of a village name is a place reference. So we had to look to some neighboring languages to get Tamig, which means whale. So our village along Calera Creek in what is now known as Pacifica is the place of the whales. And Sunday about noon, as the Hokulea was passing our village site, they were welcomed by 2 whales. Between their canoe and the shore were 2 whales to greet them on their way to Half Moon Bay, where we had a welcoming ceremony. And we truly were so thrilled. And we felt like our ancestors were there to greet them, to bring us encouragement, to let us know that we are on the right path in what we're doing in our work. And then when the crew came ashore, it was so wonderful. Thanks to Breath of Life and the linguists we're working with, I had the opportunity for the first time to use our Ramaytush language to greet them, to welcome them. And it was the first time in public speaking our language. And it was a wonderful experience. The Hokulea was for the Hawaiian culture, the beginning of their renaissance in the 1970s. It brought pride to the Hawaiian people who had been dominated by Christianity, the missionaries, the people who came to exploit their islands, to overthrow their queen. And this was the first time in the 1970s that they found pride in their culture as a voyaging community. And it brought a whole renaissance of their language. They now have language schools set up for preschool children, immersion schools in Hawaii. And the hokulea was the start of it all for the Hawaiian culture. And it was a vessel in so many ways. And we are also starting this coming week to harvest tule, because L. Frank said to me, you should be building a tule canoe. And I host canoe events, and I want you to bring your canoe. And so we're like, okay, Al says this is what we should be doing, so we're going to do it. And fortuitously, just this summer, we crossed paths with a man named Joe Weber, who has already built a 30-foot ocean-going sailing canoe. And he's looking for people to help him with his next project, which is going to be a 60-foot voyaging tule canoe that he wants to voyage from from California to Hawaii. And so we're really thrilled to be helping him and to start gathering tule. And we're going to apprentice with him, and he's going to teach us how to build an ocean tule canoe.
You see that Japanese man?
Jin is also involved with this project as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he already
My
has
tule.
been voyaging on a tule raft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't take my tule. The year
Uh-huh.
that they choose to come here, they need like 10 million yards of it. And that's the year that I want people to build it. So I'm now like,
Uh-huh.
you foreigners. No. You know, she mentions the hokulea, and I was fortunate enough. I have a Hawaiian sister. She's Hawaiian and Apache. So she's really kind and fierce. I shouldn't say whom she dated. All right. So let me see how to do this here. Anyway, introduced me to, I'd always been connected to Hawaiians, but when I met Carolyn Kuali'i, my much older sister, she's 5 days older than me, but I always say that to her. She was hanging with the Hokulea people, bringing it back with all of those people. So I became a part of that. And actually, it was Sam Ka'ai. Everything he made was just burnt up over there in Hawaii in that big fire. Museums worth of things like the tools men used, things on the canoe, the fishing implements, everything, you know. So Sam Ka'ai, I was introduced to him at that time. I met Carolyn, and our first action was to create we were at a language conference which out of it came ICLS, Advocates for Indigenous California Language Survival. And it was my introduction to working with a whole bunch of elders at once, which I don't know that I want to do. I wouldn't want to work with me. I got there early. Never get early to a conference. They make you make beds. I told them I don't even make my bed at home. So I had to make all these people's beds, you know, rooms with 6 beds, 8 beds. And so when the people started arriving, the elder Indians, they said, I want this bed, but I can't have my head to the north because that's the land of the dead. So I had to unmake their bed and put it in another direction. And each of them I had to make, rather than them just choosing the beds facing the right direction, I had to undo every single one of them. So I've held a grudge ever since. So I equate language with having to do housework. But from that conference, at that conference, Carolyn Kuali'i brought the Hawaiian immersion schools. She brought that to us here and said it was based on the Maori. And each culture that takes this immersion program then refines it to their own culture, because not every culture responds the same. So when I was once over in Wales, this guy kept following me around. I thought, oh, where are we, back in LA? And I'm being followed in a shop. But no, he wanted to talk to me. He was Welsh and wanted to talk to me about language. And so when he finally caught up with me, I told him about our language program. Ours is based on the Maori and we've got it. And he says, well, the Maori is based on the the Welsh, and the Welsh is based on the Israeli. So all of these indigenous languages, we're all doing the same thing and sharing the methodologies, the things that actually work. So it was kind of funny where that man ran it. I was at an outdoor ethnography park in Wales, and we realized there were 3 of us natives. We were there for California basket weavers, talking to the weavers in Scotland and England and everywhere. And we took time out to visit, their culture. And there was a person, a docent type person, who stood in each of those old English type houses or Welsh type houses, and they would give talks. And we finally realized that they wanted everyone to go away so they could talk to us. And when they wanted to talk to us natives, they would all look around. And I finally figured out they were looking for the English, making sure the English didn't hear them speaking Welsh. So it was very interesting to be in other places and have them feel as strongly as we do about our own languages, and they're hiding like we hide, and it's just very interesting. But it's the Hawaiians who brought us the immersion. So we started a master apprentice immersion program based on what the Hawaiians brought us. And the Hokulea, Sam Ka'ai, he used to call me Canoe Girl, and because he knew my aspirations. And he also knew that I was having a hard time because when you don't have your own culture to put together, or you don't have enough pieces. He told me, he says, "El Frank," he says, "you go to that island, you make ceremony. Everybody hates you. Next year, they steal it from you, and they're doing it." And so I said, "All right, that's good advice, All right." So the Hawaiians have for years been lifting me. The Pacific Rimmers, I consider myself a Pacific Rimmer almost more than anything else. And I fit better, and our canoes and what people on the Pacific Rim are doing as far as language and just cultural revitalization. So we get help from other people in other parts of the world. I had a fellowship that 7th Generation up in Northern California gave me. And so I went and I spent a month. I went up to the Sami in Finland to see how their language programs work. They work really well if you have oil money. Surprising what money can do, But hey, they're benefiting right now, but they have to fight the oil at the same time. So it's this big thing going up there. But I got to be with the Sami people. And then I went over to the Wales. Wales, come on, get it right. I went with the Welsh people in Wales. I tried to find the Frisians. They're the original people in Amsterdam or the Netherlands. It turns out my friend there is Frisian, but doesn't speak the language. Then I went over to find some Irish. I finally found some. They go, "Oh yes, the troublemakers live over there." So next time I go back, I'm looking for the Irish troublemakers because they're the ones doing all the same thing we're doing here, piecing back together a culture, which we often have to fight governments for and other Okay, you're trying to piece back together your culture. You're trying to give your people a reason to be themselves and be happy and be whole. And then reservation dogs, Res Dogs comes on TV. Everybody loves it. It's a great program. And then those kids in that program go to LA, and who do they find? The wrong Indians. They say they're meeting the Chumash. Chumash are like 2 Indians up. So every time we turn around, something is against us. Other Indians from around us, because they consider us to have weak leadership. No, it's Indian leadership. It just looks weak to you if you're looking at it from another viewpoint or another worldview. They've moved into the city, and now they've got the city of LA thinking that they're the ones who should be talked with. And you're just trying, so there's all kinds of impediments. Extinction is a pretty tough thing to get over.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it's
Definitely.
okay.
Yeah.
We have help.
Mhm.
We'll make it.
I
We're going to
always
last
say
longer than everybody else. So
progress
Sorry.
is a process, and we are making progress.
right.
It doesn't often happen as quickly as we would like to have it happen, but they're not stopping us. We are making progress, and we are still here, and
Mhm.
we're here to prove it.
Yeah, and people like over in Oakland, there's the Shumi tax, because people are living and getting benefit, even if it's just the cosmic energy benefit from this place. And down in LA, we now call it, I'm not sure if we're calling it Kuyam, which is plural, or Kui, which is singular, but Kui means guest. We're calling ours land tax or whatever tax a guest exchange, because I'm a little uncomfortable with let's tax you. I'd rather have it be an exchange that you understand what's happening. And there's a big movement that gets in the way of our revitalization. In America's feeling so guilty about Black people that they want to give them our lands. They gave away Manhattan Beach. Did they ask us? No. I should have. I have one regret in life. This is my regret on my deathbed. Some kids were gifting me a 6 to 8 ton rock. It's like, what am I going to do with a 6 to 8 ton rock? You know, and I should have accepted it. And they said, if we give it to you, where would you like to put it? And I said, Bruce's Beach. That's that piece of land that they sold because these people had been cheated 100 years ago. But I'd like to see that bill of sale and how far back it goes. I think we should be included. And it's become, I am going to see this woman in court. I know I am. She's working hard for her people, and she made a statement, and she's making California be the example for all the other states about giving our land away without us being involved. And she made a statement that I'm going to print real big next when I see her in court. She said, there should be no statute of limitations on stolen lands. I thought, yeah, you're right, lady. Just remember those words. Because, yeah, so, that's a big thing. I was on the Indian radio. Whenever somebody drops out, they go, let's call Elle Frank. She'll make up stuff. As long as she doesn't say penis on the radio, she's fine. So anyway, I asked the guy interviewing me, I said, which of my nieces or nephews, which tribe, which of my nieces or nephews is going to call me and say next that their land is being given to somebody else without them even being involved? Sure enough, the Lenape, their village there, and there was a Black community, and so they're going to get land. But, how far back in line do we have to be? And the reason all this matters, we're not money hungry, grubbing, whatever. We are required by our Creator to care for these places. And how can we really care for them if we are the poverty level? If we have the worst education, how can we do our job when we're just trying to keep our people alive and safe? How can we do our job when we're can't even afford to live in our own homelands, like the Hawaiians? This is why I don't have siblings any longer. They kept saying, oh, we're going to buy land in Hawaii. And I kept going, oh, the poor Hawaiians, where are they going to live? And I'm a buzzkill. I want to go live in Hawaii. Don't talk to me about starving Hawaiians living 15 to a room, in an apartment while you're laying on a beach. So revitalizing anything is really, we do have to be magicians. We have to be ready for anything, and we have to be magicians. And for me, I want to, and I need to be open to everybody, because I always tell people that it took us several hundred years to get to this state, and we had a lot of help doing that. That to get back, we're going to need everybody's help to get back. And people ask, well, why should I support you just hunting and fishing? Like, that's what I do. I'm an LA Indian. I'm afraid of fish. Get out. So what do? We want to, I'd like to be supported to hunt and fish. That's not how it works, but okay. The way it actually works is you support the Indigenous where you're from in their efforts, whatever they may be, and it only benefits you and your progeny. Because we're not making better air for ourselves. No, you can't have our good air. No, you can't have our good water. No, we want your children to suffer. When we say you are guests in our land, we have to treat you as guests, and we can't even do that. So all of this stuff rolls into, there's so much more that is involved in revitalization of any parts of our culture. And I appreciate all the help we have. There were people who raised money so I could buy a bus, so I could tow that canoe, so we could go to canoe journey, so we could see what it's like to live in a village. So we could understand the things that are deeply hidden inside of us. And so I've been fortunate. A lot of people have helped me. Everyone says, Elle Frank does these great things. No, I just go, I want to do this thing, and people help. And I appreciate that. So
Yeah,
pay
we're
rent.
having a huge problem here in the Bay Area as well. Cultural erasure has been going on for 300 years. We've been colonized for that long. And, there's some local tribes here in the Bay Area that are trying to go for federal recognition. But these people have been colonized so long. They're trying to fit into these parameters laid out by the government, who's tried to exterminate us. And yet they want recognition for financial gain. And they've been colonized so long, they have a total disregard for ancestral homelands. They're claiming other tribes, ancestral homelands, to fit into the at least 600 enrollment in their tribe. This is put out by the federal government. And they're going along with what the government is mandating, in total disregard for whose ancestral homeland is this here on the peninsula? Is it from someone from far, far away who wants to take all of our ancestral homelands to fit their 600-person enrollment for the government and have disregard for us who live here, our village site right here at Tamigtok? That doesn't matter. What matters is that financial gain by the government. So many of our brothers and sisters have been colonized so long that they have taken on the characteristics of the colonizers. They're claiming other people's ancestral homelands for financial gain. We're not even recognized by our own brothers and sisters. There's so much strife that's happening here. We're being pitted against each other. And it's just, you know, many of us doing the work that we are with Muchia, I say, it's not my work to be fighting amongst ourselves. We just need to continue to do our work, to stay focused on what is important to us, bringing back our language, bringing back our ways of living, bringing back our basketry, building our canoes. We just need to educate the people, do our good work, and don't pay attention to the strife that is happening around us, that our good work is going to speak for itself. I don't need to go fight the tribes over here or over there who have manifested this modern day destiny. And so there's a struggle amongst ourselves as well.
Yeah, you know, it's just weird. You're trying to do good, and then all of a sudden you have to go do something else that you didn't plan on. At Long Beach State, there's a piece of land there, and it's where our God appeared as a specter. We know the exact spot our God appeared right here. But it doesn't stop them from wanting, they've been stopped from putting a little mini mall, you know, a laundromat and a liquor store, because that's what our God wants. And so we have to go fight stuff like that, you know, stuff that's pretty obvious to us. What if we told you, look, Jesus stood right here? Boy, that ground would be so sacred. There'd be a cathedral built around it. You know, people would drive for miles to come there and get holy, but not us, you know. So there are all these side things that happen to you while you're just trying. Like, I'd spend all of my time in a museum basement if I could. That's where I'm happiness. People leave me alone. You know, I can photograph things that I'm going to remake. I made the first stone bowl by someone in my tribe in 200 years. And so I visit all the stone bowls and I touch them like, ooh, I have missed you. You know, I touch them like that, like we know each other. Because that's how sexy I am. Ooh, I have missed you. Anyway. And I'm just trying to say that you'd think that revitalizing, researching would be enough work for natives, but it's not. There's everything else that we have to get past in order to get to that. So by the end of the day, we're a little exhausted and grumpy, you know? And at this moment, the way things are, I wouldn't change a thing. At this age, I've learned how to just keep on moving, one step in front of the other. Just keep swimming. I saw in a movie once, it said, just keep swimming. And things have changed, but they only changed because we've sacrificed what the outer world would call successful lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I have sacrificed that in my lifetime. I've lived off the grid for over 40 years out in the redwood forest. My father was actually born and raised in Hawaii, and I was actually brought up with a lot more Hawaiian culture than my own California native culture. And so for 20 years, I paddled with an outrigger canoe club in Santa Cruz. And I've spent lots and lots of time out in the ocean in a canoe. So I've been in the forest and on the ocean. And so I have a much different perspective than many of the urbanized brothers and sisters of ours who have been here in the city. And I don't have the wealth that most people do. I don't drive a new car. You know, my old Toyota pickup is a 93. You know, cell phones is a new thing for me. And, but I feel that I've made a connection with the earth that is so valuable to me in the work that I am now doing, that it has brought me to the place that I am. And in hindsight, my whole life has been preparing me for the work that we are now doing. And I have such a deep connection to the earth and to the animals and to the living things around me that I wouldn't trade it for 1 minute for the luxuries of the modern world. It's fine with me that I use a candle to light my cabin with. I'm good with that. I'll trade that any day for the modern conveniences of flipping a switch and having indoor heating.
Oh, well, I'm an LA Indian. I love technology. Yeah. You know, you use the tools that you're comfortable with. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know quite what else to say here. Let me see. Trying to read people's minds, what you're thinking.
Well, we are going to have a question and answer session after this. So.
Well, are we going to have donuts in between?
No,
All right.
I don't think so.
So on top of our canoes and our, you know, I should mention our baskets really, because the Basket Weaver Association of California, it's changed a bit since I was on the board, but when it first started, I went to it and I didn't know much about our basketry at all. I didn't know anything, let's say that. But when I was watching all the other natives, I saw this scene where one day this woman, she was about 85, and she wanted people to learn basketry, but nobody was with her. And she just sat like this. And the next day I pulled up and her little booth is crowded and she's smiling. And this guy, he looked like a welder. I don't know. He looked like he had on welding clothes. They were all singed. And anyway, that's how I weld. I get all singed. So he was running from her little booth and he was running towards another welder looking guy. And he says, "Hey, Bob, look it, I can weave." You know, and that woman was just grinning so big. She told me she thought she was going to die and she would never see anyone weave. You know, and the elders tell me that they thought they were going to die and nobody would ever speak the language. And the weavers, every aspect, I interviewed California natives, every tribe in California. It's a book called First Families. So I spoke to just about everybody. You know, we had very different conversations. And when I got to their door, they would say that we've been waiting all of them said it, we've been waiting our whole lives for someone to listen to us. You know, that was pretty heavy. So, but the things they talk about holding on and being the last of these to hold on and waiting for the next one, that's what we've been doing for a couple hundred years now. Because it's the way to keep our families alive is to do what they want us to do, even to this day. And so if you take the time to do what we want to do, then you're asking for trouble, kind of, you know? And so, you know, I was out on the Dene, I was out on some reservation part of the Dene lands out. And my best friend was Dene. And his nephew comes flying out of the outhouse. You know, he's Dene. And he comes flying out of the outhouse and he goes, "I don't know how you people do this. You know, where's the flush toilet? Let's go to the mall." You know, and that's what a lot of kids, they don't want to not have electricity, or they don't want to be responsible in the ways that it takes. And it's kind of hard to bring them back. I was adopted down in Kunanuta. Turns out I have either a brother, a son, or a father over here, because the kinship, I don't know how it works. Turns out he was adopted over there also in Australia. And What was I going to tell you? I started thinking about that. Oh, shoot. Pardon? Kids these days. Yeah. Thank you very much. Usually I assign somebody. When I digress, you remind me. Okay. Good job. Well done. It's my brother. The young girls don't want to. I went out to women's camp in the outback, which they said, you're just like, you're Indians are just like them. No, we're quite different. But I was in the outback and the women told me that the young girls don't want to come to the outback anymore and learn the dances. But so if the older women go into town dressed for outback, and painted, and if they touch you, and then you are compelled and you now have to come out to the outback. So I wish we had some compulsion stuff here, where I touch you, now you've got to learn language, now you've got to learn to dance. So I think that's a kind of a great tool. That was very interesting being in the outback. I didn't know what it was. I said, that looks like the Milky Way, and it was, but it was sitting as close to me as this roof is here. It was so dark out there. And I had come in the daytime and they were eating the traditional foods of white bread, hot dogs, and milk that had been left in the sun all day long. But they were teaching each other dances that they've been taught for a billion years since the beginning of time. And my friend was with the men. And I told him, Richard, the women's dances, like they said, this dance is for you. And they were doing this to me, and it's a boomerang song. They said, when your man leaves you, you do this dance and he will boomerang back to you. And all their songs were about getting men to get back, and so, or getting men to do this or getting back at men. And I'm like, wow. So I said, Richard, what are you guys learning? How to hunt? It's like, you guys are in trouble because the women, they got plans. They have songs, they have dances, they have plans. The guys are like hunting and fishing songs. No. So it's been a very interesting. I've been to many countries to help people learn, like a cheerleader on their languages. I was up in Nunavut with the Inui Noctune. That's up where Santa Claus lives, at the very tip top of the world. And they told me, a Southern Californian who thinks 57 is freezing, they say, we brought you here in the coldest time of the year. It's like, great, it's 76 below. I thought I was going to die. I cried so many times walking back to the hotel, and then it froze. Don't cry, you'll die. Anyway, all to go and help with language. We had a big meal there. I have to talk fast because it's a 5-minute sign. They're going to have a big meal. One of the exercises, you have a meal in language. Well, their meals, I am a Southern California Indian. I'd rather have those vegan tamales. They were like sucking the marrow out of deer toes, and really working them. I'm like, wow. And they were scraping bones and eating marrow, and everybody scraped the same bone several times and sucked the same marrow several times. And I had a salad, it was like a $42 salad because it was winter in Nui Noctune. But it was so these learning the ways to reclaim our languages, and we're learning from each other, are really very exciting and varied. And yes, sometimes you have to eat weird stuff.
It's very exciting moving forward, and it's a good time to be alive. There's much more everywhere I travel here along the coast and speak. We have so many allies who are coming forward to support us, and we're like nomads in our own land. We can't even afford to live here in our homeland, but yet other people are gifting us space to host our weekly language classes. Another location, we're being gifted space to hold our basket circles, working with the history museums, the school districts. A lot of our focus is on education. We just really need to get the word out that we are here and we are moving forward and we are bringing our culture forward, and nothing is going to stop us.
Hasn't stopped us yet. Yeah. I keep telling people, if you're waiting for us to assimilate, you might as well stop. Maybe I'll just sing a song to finish and then you can.
Okay. I'll sing a song after you.
Okay. You
All right.
sing the same song?
Probably not.
Okay. It was a joke. Tupash, hengamawish, mila yachlo, nga nga nga, Sapulano ngaloma nga 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 tupa shengamawish vilayachlo nga nga nga.
I'm going to move my microphone away because my song is going to be really loud. This is our honoring Mother Earth song. Take way on your way up because she needs our prayers. Take way, take way, take way, anya, 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 anya. Take way, take way, take way, anya, 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 anya. Take way, take way, take way, anya, 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 anya. Take way, take way, take way, anya, 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 anya.
Oh,
Hey,
oh. We're waiting for a technology to arrive. Here it comes.
get your questions ready.
No, you can't talk to us.
Oh,
Remember, they can't talk to us.
yes,
They have
this
to talk
is
to
about
this.
language though, right?
No, no, this is about vacation in Bali, I think.
Oh,
All right, there's a question. What do you recommend as first steps for people who are realizing they are Indigenous or wanting a connection to their Indigenous roots? Ooh. That's
learn your language.
well, first you got to find your language.
Yeah.
Then you got to find out who's doing your language.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a real tough one. Re-entry, I had a re-entry because my mother had removed me from my native family. Well, I'm native on her side too, but they never admitted to it. But being reintroduced to your culture is not an easy thing. The best thing is if you have names, family names, start with that. If you have a region, start with that. And go to those regions. And I would say look in a phone book, but I don't think anyone knows what that is anymore. So you have to, now I guess you go to Google. Yeah, Google, if your last name is Robertson, look up all the Robertsons in an area you come from. You have to really be a good detective quite often in order to find out if you're re-entering. And the best advice I could say is eyes wide open, ears wide open, mouth closed. The less you say, the closer you're going to get to your own people. I know this because I made a bunch of Indians freak out when I'm from LA. So actually I talk like this. I'm slowing down for y'all, but where I come from, if you don't talk fast, go away. And so I ran up when I moved up to Northern California, and I was in the midst of all these Pomoan Indians, and there was a line of like 6 of them. It was at an event, and I ran up to them because I saw some plants, and I said, "Oh, these plants, do you know these plants? I don't know these plants. What do you use these plants for? Are you into plants?" And they all looked at me, and independently, they all just turned their backs to me. Suddenly, I was just looking at backs, and I realized, oh, just shut up and be observant. The best thing you can do is try and find an elder. Once you're observant, try and find an elder in that community, and they'll help you out. But it's a sticky wicket. Reentry is, you could burn up upon reentry pretty quickly. Yeah. Anything on that, or another question?
Another question.
Okay, how can non-Indigenous people learn and use or reference Indigenous words or phrases respectfully.
Try to go for some simple terms. When I said hey ya at the end of my song, that's our Ramaytush word for yes. So try to go with something simple, maybe a greeting. Hersha Puhi is good day. That's a greeting that we use. This evening I used Hersha More, good evening. Those are all, try to go for something positive and simple and something you might not be destroying the pronunciation too badly.
Good luck with that. My own tribe does it. They call themselves Tongva. No, it's Tongva. Yeah, first learn the name of the tribe. That's a really good place to start. Learn the name of the tribe, because we have our own names. In California, there were, over 200 something tribes and 150 languages or some. We were the most diverse place outside the Valley of Mexico, I guess. So even if you just, when I was docenting over, I don't know if that's a word, docenting over at the Oakland Museum, I made this map and I took it around to California in advance, and California natives could write down their own names they called themselves. And I would show the school kids who came through and I'd say, wherever you go, there we are. So try and find the names of who we are. And those stories are true of people naming each other weirdly, like the Wailaki Indians. Some non-natives asked their neighbors of the Wailaki, what do you call those people? And they said, we call them Wailaki. Well, that word means enemy. Of course, that's what we call them. They call themselves Caneste. So there's all kinds of, so if learning the name is a great place to start.
Yeah, actually, when I was at Berkeley at Breath of Life, I had to do a final project to complete the course. And it always drives me nuts as a resident here of the peninsula or along the coast. The term Ohlone is a term I don't use because it's an umbrella over many different tribes. And so almost anywhere you go in that region, you ask, whose homeland are you on? Probably about 90% of the time you'll get Ohlone. And people aren't aware of Ramaytush, Huchin, Tamian, Rumsen, Awaswas. It's not commonly heard. And so it drives me nuts when I see tribal maps of California, and we're always globbed together as either Costanoan or Ohlone. And so when I went to Berkeley, I researched in the archives and I made my own map as my final project. And what I did was I made a map of the San Francisco Peninsula, and I designated the regional areas and as many village sites as I could. And so mapping and knowing whose ancestral homeland you're on is a really good first step.
This is a good question here. Well, not to say the others weren't. Do you know of any efforts to find ways to dialogue with African Americans about Indigenous land rights and resolving historical wrongs? I have had experience with this because I've been the loudest yeller about this issue on social media. And so I got invited by the, how do you say her tribe's name? Lishan?
Oh, that's a village area.
But what's the, do you know how to pronounce it? No, Lishan. Well, okay, Karina Gould's peeps. She invited me, and when I got there, I'm not sure who the women were. They were Black women who I think were land-based. They had farms and were, and also interested in this topic because they don't want to, they recognize what's happening. So we were going to have a discussion, and we had a very good discussion. And out of this discussion, one of the things that I said was that I'm glad we're having these discussions because we can't talk about this subject without first us trusting each other and knowing where each other is coming from. It's not that I don't want you to have lands. It's not that at all, because I've been eating it as a racist for this. It's not that I don't want you to have lands. I understand the situation that you all are in. I understand how it came about, but when do we get understood at all is my thing. So we decided we were going to meet in September, but I think that's just about over, isn't it? What month are we
We're
in?
in October.
Yeah, but you know, being women and close to the land, I wanted to meet, like, let's meet next week. Let's have some affirmative plans. Let's get this thing done. But they're waiting for an equinox or a, you know, when the moon is full and the grapes are ripe and, you know, the earth says this is the time. And you know, I'm a lot more aggressive than that. So there are people who are beginning to talk to each other. Some people in community are beginning to discuss, and it would be great if more people brought it up and talked with their friends and had discussions together, because it's just really much, people don't understand what the problem is, what our beef is with this, you know. So the more of us just get to talking about it, because everybody's into justice movements, yeah, except here. So let's make that talk go a little further. Kata, can you explain who
Muchia.
Muchia was? Apparently it is no longer.
Yes.
Okay.
Muchia is the matriarch of our family. She's documented at the mission here in San Francisco in 1782. Her baptismal was recorded. Her death certificate was recorded 3 days apart. Her thought to be 11-year-old daughter was baptized several years prior. It was very common that they abducted the children, took them into the mission, and used them as bait to lure the rest of their families in. So Muchiete's daughter had been in the mission for several years. On her baptism certificate, it stated that she was on her deathbed. And what we have to go by are the dates and try to fill in the spaces. And what my interpretation is that she knew she was ill. She knew she was dying, and that she went to the mission to see her daughter before she passed. Luckily, they recorded our family's indigenous names, which was rare. Not only did they record Muchiete's indigenous name, they also recorded our village and location of Tamigtalk along Clara Creek in what is now known as Pacifica. It's right along the coast. It's a beautiful location. It's consistently under threat of development because in 2016, there was the threat of a luxury hotel and condos. Luckily, the community voted that down. Currently, it's under threat of filling in an area that had been mined. They refer to it as the quarry. I prefer to refer to it as Tamigtalk. And now the city of Pacifica is considering a proposal by an applicant who wants to haul in 162 dump truck loads a day of soil that's being excavated from various construction sites. That many truckloads a day for 4 years to fill in and replace a hill or a mountain that originally had stones in it that were mined for limestone. So it's a continual battle to protect our village site of Tamigtalk. And so in honoring the matriarch of our family who links us to the tribe here, we have chosen to name our Indigenous land trust Muchiate in her honor.
Nice. There's some questions here. There's one about reciprocity and breaking rules, but then there's one below it that says, how does learning your language shift your perspective of the world? Do you learn how your ancestors saw the world through learning the language they used to describe it? If so, what are the differences between it, your language, and English? This is why anytime an exploiter goes somewhere, the very first thing they do is stop the natives whoever they find from speaking their language. Because when you have your language, nothing can stop you except for bullets when you only have rocks. But when you have your language, you have faith, you have hope, you have nerve. And that's why languages are stopped, in order to refill you with a different worldview. Language holds entirely the worldview. When I started hearing the language before birth and all, I didn't know quite what it meant, but it was okay. It was comforting and good. And when I started actually learning the language, I started realizing English is dull. English is awful. You know, I mean, I used to like to read Dickens, but geez, it's just, it takes, my friend described it. He's, I think Maidu in Hawaiian, but he described it as the difference as in English, you say, here comes a pretty girl. In Hawaiian, you say, oh, a beautiful flower is blossoming, kind of, and it's all this metaphor. You need your metaphor dictionaries to almost every language is so beautiful and vibrant, and English is bland and utilitarian. It's like the ugly spatula in your drawer. It's useful to flip that egg, but I don't know. I got nicer spatulas. So while that I'm learning, people think I'm brave about things. If it's bravery, what it really is language. And it's not that the language, there's hardly any Tongva language. We have very limited vocabulary, but the words I know, each and every one of them just expand, and I feel like I get closer and closer and closer to being us, and how wrong this is for me. I've recently told people that I am done being any more civilized. I'm going to actually start going the other direction, because look at what civilization has done,
Mhm.
And so why am I struggling to be a part of that and be more civilized? I'm just a merciless savage, and I'm happy about it. I even have a hat that says that, savage. I like to wear it to really refined places. I walk in with my tattoos and savage, and order chamomile tea. But the language, it makes you fierce in your heart. And that's why our people have been rubbed out for so long. We have very few, we're remnants. Why do we feel so strongly? Why do we crave that language? Why do we crave to know all the things that our people know? Why is that still in us after all of this? The language just makes it worse. It's just like, not worse for us, but worse for those who try to contain us. We're going to dance in the rain barefoot. I don't care what you say, our language says we can. We need our language. People don't think about how important language is. We need our language to bury our dead. We need our language to bring our children into the world. We need our language just like everybody else does. And people don't think that about us. My own in-laws, ex-in-laws now, why are you working so hard? There's English. We can all understand each other with English. Why are you working so hard? Because the picture that you see, the world that you see, the world that you feel, the world that you visit it's like this glow inside of you, and you're freezing, and suddenly that glow is where you want to be, because that's the warmth. So yeah, it does change things, and the differences, I think I explained them.
When I was a young girl, my father had a pet name for me because I wasn't the docile little girl that he was expecting. And so his name for me was Granite. And we were both lovers of rocks, so I didn't take it as an insult. He felt that I was very stubborn and not afraid to speak up if something arose that I didn't agree to. And I prefer to use the term of tenacity. I think it's our tenacity that has made it possible for us to even be here, for our ancestors to survive the hardship and the traumas that they endured. It took a lot of tenacity to get us here. And I've been also referred to as feral. I've been told that I am feral, and I took that as a compliment. And I think it aligns well with the savage label. And I think there's something genetically that we have inherited that has us doing this work. And without it, we would have given up a long time ago. So thank goodness for tenacity and our ancestors.
One quick thing I'd like to say is they gave us this and it's got all your questions on here. They said I get to take it home when this is over. That was a lie. I'm sorry.
Better to you than I wouldn't know what to do with
Oh,
it.
I do.
There you go. Do we have more questions?
Well, this says end of questions. Thank you.
Oh,
So
okay.
waiting for the next directive. Go ahead, take something from an Indian in front of people.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
All right,
thank
right
you
on.
so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Shespanane.